Hey everyone, welcome to the Noor Podcast. We are a talk show style podcast based in Lot 14 in Adelaide, and we are just a storytelling platform where we want to uncover people's masks that they put on in daily life. Come listen to us as we delve down into the stories of everyday people and talk about the accomplishments that they've had in their life. Let me introduce you to today's guest.
I'm Jake Bostock. I'm the capability scout at We In WW3 Partners. We're looking for smart Australians developing technologies for the ADF and our warfighters to help them fight, win, and come home safely to their families.
Coming down. Yeah, awesome. So maybe we can just start off with a little bit of an introduction. Who you are, your story up to this point, and kind of what you do, and then we can kind of go from there, Jake.
For sure.
Yeah.
Jake Bostock, born in Canberra, into a broken home, put in foster care at a young age, moved to Sydney, lived in southwest Sydney until I was 18, joined the army as soon as I could. It's always been my dream. Anyone knows me knows I was either going to end up in prison or be in the army, so definitely made the right choice there. From there, joined the infantry, served in the infantry for 9 years full time, went to make the jump to commission in the Australian Army, become an officer. I had lined that all up, passed all the tests and all the hurdles you have to make to jump. I have a project within Defence, the Air Force currently fund. It was making transition to Army. I had a big choice to make whether I defer my long-term goals to commission and serve for the rest of my service as an officer, or to get a capability over to Army for Defence. I've made the latter. Then the same day I made that decision, end of the year, last day at work, throwing spanners everywhere, I called Steve Baxter. Everyone probably knows from Shark Tank. He was a close mentor of mine. Supposed to have a coffee with him early 2023 last year. I said, we can have the coffee, but I'm not going. And then that same day, he said, Jake, I'm going to make a decision harder for you. How would you like to come work for me at Bean Zone? And knowing what he was trying to do with Bean Zone, how disruptive it was going to be, I said, okay, leave it with me. It took me about 2 months of talking with various mentors, endless mind maps. And then February last year, made the decision to jump out full-time service and join Steve at Bean Zone as his capability scout. I'm sure we'll go into that a bit more around Bean Zone. And then I serve part-time now. So generally I try to work Fridays, pretty flexible. And then whenever I'm needed for a course or anything like that.
Yeah. Well, we can go into the Bean Zone side of things in a second, but from your experience of being in the Army itself, what was that experience like? Like, what was the positives and the negatives, and what do you treasure most about that experience and the people?
Yeah, it's definitely a roller coaster, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Started off pretty negative. I put some pretty bad experiences through training, with bullying as a very young, very skinny, tiny kid. Then that sort of faded away over time. Got the battalion, sort of disappeared. But then most of my career, I'd say it all went uphill. A lot of good memories, a lot of good fun. Mateship's the thing that everyone treasures the most, and that's definitely true. There's no culture like it for that. That's probably the bare bones to it. Happy to delve into different things, but I guess one of the biggest highlights is working with a group within Defence. Some very cool experimentation activities around robotics autonomous systems. Doing some sprints, learning Lean, Agile, Scrum, all these types of methodologies, and then applying them in sprints, which I found very fun. I really like your model with Baxter. I think it's definitely the way to do it. Small teams that are cross-functional, multifunctional. Getting them together, getting them a short time frame, inducing that time stress and other stress factors, and great results are achieved. So,
Yeah, awesome. Yeah.
Wow. Wow, interesting story. So defense, safety, basically. I'm just going to jump back into the story. Would you recommend it? I mean, is it the right phrase that I used, or?
Yeah. That's probably true, to be honest with you. I won't delve too much into family stuff, but I'm the only one not medicated in my family. The people in prison, a lot of drug and alcohol abuse, things like that. So yeah, definitely it could have been a different path, that's for sure. My foster dad said, he said when I, about 3 years into the army, we had a good sit down and we reflected on some of the stuff going through foster care and that sort of thing, and that was really awesome. And he said to me, yeah, Jake, you're either going to be in jail or in the army. And nickname growing up was like Jarhead, always shaved my head. Everything I did was always with the plan to join the army. Everything I studied, everything I did in my spare time was always to shape me or help me for service. Anyone that knows me really right now knows I want to be in the army full time, and I can be. But there's nothing. Tomorrow I go back. My CEO is very supportive. Said, Jake, will sign your documents. You come back in. Have a golden parachute essentially, which is amazing to have that, and it's rare. And I don't take it lightly that I'm very fortunate where I sit and who I have in my chain of command and who I have in my sort of sphere. But I just genuinely feel like I can't do enough inside Army. Any job that I know of within defence, really, either as an infantry corporal, where I am now, full time, in the team that I work in, which they're quite disruptive and do quite a lot of good things for defence capability, or as an officer, junior officer within Army, whichever corps I got into. There's nothing that I can do in the short period of time to get us to where I think we need to be as a defence force. So Steve offering me the role as capability scout to go around Australia and find people working on disruptive technologies for our warfighters. It is a massive, to me, whether I am contributing enough or not, it feels like a massive leap forward and be able to provide more of a capability effect than what I could do within Army full time. But once again, very fortunate to be inside Army still part time and still chipping away at things and working on the projects, I guess, passion projects and things like that, which hopefully chip away at the problem. And have a lot of fun too. And a really good team.
Yeah, it's amazing you found so much satisfaction with being in the Army, and even just like specific things that you love doing, you're able to find that within the Army to accommodate you as well. That's awesome. How have you found, so obviously we've had a couple people from the military on the podcast already. We had Kabora Ali. She was the first Afghan woman in the Australian Defence Force. She was SAS Woman of the Year. Having chat to her, one of the things we talked about and we took her point of view on was there's obviously, and it's quite publicly known that there's this struggle with young people joining the Defence Force at the moment. Quote me if I'm wrong, let me know if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure we have a negative retention rate, so more people are leaving the Army than joining. Not the Army, but like the whole Defence Force. What's your take on what the problem might be, and how have you had discussions on how we could potentially fix that as well, or what the military is doing to kind of recruit more talent?
Or how do you encourage young people?
Exactly.
So like even more senior people that we join.
For sure.
And why?
Yeah, there's a bit to unpack there. This is something I'm very passionate about, both recruitment and retention. And I'm lucky enough to be in spheres of where there's people developing other programs within ADF careers to recruit, I guess, not traditional talent that you'd usually see come into defence, which is awesome. I guess, there's a public fit. There's public knowledge that we're retaining less than we're recruiting. So we're losing more people than we actually be able to backfill with our recruitment. It's definitely needs to be better. And Defence acknowledge that, and they are pushing out a bunch of incentives. And I think we spoke about yesterday, you see ADF recruitment ads everywhere, always targeted ads. And I made the joke yesterday where every day, like any social media app I'm on, I'm always getting ADF recruitment ads. I'm like, I'm already in, stop targeting me. Like,
you're wasting away.
I don't want to leave. But so it's definitely a huge problem. I think talent, especially skilled talent across Australia is in a bad shape. Everyone's trying to find the skilled workforce, I guess. And with Defence, with various things that have come out through the DSR, the Defence Strategic Review, and AUKUS Pillar 1's probably a very topical subject. AUKUS altogether. I definitely operate around AUKUS Pillar 2, advanced capabilities. But Pillar 1, a nuclear workforce, which we just don't have here in Australia. There's only one nuclear reactor in Sydney, and there's not a great deal of expertise in Australia. There is, but there's not enough yet. So that's a massive thing as well. I don't know. What did I miss there?
You're a very passionate person. I mean, by the discussion that we had yesterday as well, a bit of a chat about things around, and very interesting the story. What keeps you awake at night?
That's a good question. Got a couple of things, and fortunately, you can't delve too deep into those things because. But I think it's common knowledge that we are in uncertain times, geopolitically, and the next theatre of war, if there is one, hopefully there's not. I don't think any sensible person wants a war, particularly at that scale. The reason I joined Army, I think, and many people who join Defence, they want to help people. They want to fight the bullies of the world. They want to help people. It probably sounds a bit like cliche, but freedom. Like we want to help others be free. And that's definitely why I joined. Want to essentially use our training, our technologies, mindset, culture to defeat and beat the bullies of the world. And we have a lot of those. We're very technologically advanced Defence Force. We're very well trained. Those strategic focuses and threats. Though that sort of keeps me up, and doing sort of analysis of where we sit as a Defence Force versus threats. That's what pushes me to try to do more both inside defence in different areas, but also with being zone. Every waking moment, I'd say, which my missus isn't very happy about. No, she's awesome. Is spent on anything I can do to try to help us get an edge somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. And you did mention Beaten Zone there as well, and it kind of ties it in. Could you explain to the audience, which probably has never heard of this company before, what do you do?
So Beaten Zone Venture Partners is a venture capital fund for defence. It's a target for defence only. So we're not. There's a term that's thrown around a lot in, say, the national security space in private capital is dual use. Essentially means you have dual use technologies in the fact that they can be used in defence or government and also commercially, and pretty much everything bar a missile and a bullet is dual use. And even then, you can say the missile is a logistics missile, which you can't. But that's stupid. But so we target defence only. We understand pretty much everything we look at, bar a few technologies, can be dual use. We want the focus of the founders and the company on defence as a primary market. And there's no real fixed thing here, but definitely want like an 80-20 split. That's the sort of thinking we look at it. Mm-hmm. We want mostly for defence, and particularly for the next few years anyway. So we invest between $500,000 to $3 million, with follow-ons up to $6 million. And we participate in rounds and take an equity stake between 15% and 25% generally. And that's sort of where we sit. Up until recently, and even I'd say we still are, we're the only fund in Australia that will fund lethality. So it's quite edgy and quite scary to some people. But so our mandate's lethality and survivability. So essentially anything that helps us defeat, fight and win, or help our guys come home, help our people come home safe to their families. So that's sort of our thing. So in combat, everything narrows down to survivability and lethality. Can you fight effectively with what you have, what you can find, what you can make, improvise with, and can you survive to keep fighting? Those are the two things. So that's where we sit. And we're the only fund that's not ESG constrained, I'll say. So we definitely have an ESG mandate.
What is ESG?
So environment, social governance. Mm-hmm. Essentially, a lot of investors just won't touch. There's a few things they won't touch, and defence, unfortunately, is part of that because of some misconceptions, definitely, misinformation and that sort of things. So we will actively target defence. It's pretty clear, I think. And we're proud of it too. We're not shying away. So our warfighters need technologies not just ones that will. It's all good to have defend, but you can't just sit there and take hits all day and not give hits back. So yeah.
Yeah, a bit to unpack there. We've got two lines of thought I wanted to go down. So first, obviously, talking within, you're working within startups in the defense industry. So obviously that ties into the bracket of the industry, right? And a lot of conversation has been around the Australian Defence Force. We've got Army, Navy, and Air Force, and then we've got industry, which is private on the other side, right? How do those two come and tie in together? And is there obviously you're working in the Army side, but what is the relationship between that Australian Defence Force and industry, and why are they kind of codependent on each other, and why are both necessary? Why can't we just do everything inside the Australian Defence Force itself?
That's a tough question. I could talk about that for, I think, 6 hours. It's a great question. There's a lot of nuances. I'll say there's definitely a fence. There's a barrier between defence industry. It's been like that for quite a while. There's definitely pockets of excellence in both sides that break through. And I say, and I being a defence member, I can't talk negatively of defence too much. So I have to sort of skirt a line here. But also, I pride myself on being disruptive, and we need it. We can't keep the status quo, fortunately. There's definitely a divide. There's definitely a valley of death, not in technical sense, technology sense, or market sense, but in between defence and industry. And to your question, why we can't do inside, skill workforce, the amount of, I guess, due diligence people have to go through to get in, and then get skill, generally skill inside, and to get to a level that we're needed to function operationally day to day, just doesn't exist. It's so slow and cumbersome. So we need to rely on the private sector quite heavily. Australia is known as being one of the more, I guess, externally reliant defence forces, or departments of defence, I should say. And
what are the pros and cons of that? Being externally,
so there's a big cultural issue, obviously, and there's definitely different reasons for things and different nexuses for things. But one of the biggest ones is the you versus us versus them sort of mentality, and you're not wearing the uniform, you're not part of the team. That's definitely a big cultural issue. People push outside the tent, even though they have the same clearances. They're super passionate. They want to contribute to the team. And I think one of the things the industry struggle with the most is, and I put probably a bit disruptive post out recently, it caused a lot of commotion, which was good. It was all good. It was essentially treating the defence industry as the fourth service of defence. Some people took that literally and thought, we're trying to not stamp another service in defence, and that's definitely not what I was trying to say. And I think that's definitely not what the majority of us in this space that understand this problem are trying to say. In defence definitely needs to start treating industry different across the board. As part of the team, they're not the enemy. They're other Australians. They're our mates. They want us to win. And if there's next fight, they want us to win. They have families here. They want to keep our cultures, even though some issues in Australia, there's obviously some big issues in Australia. But generally speaking, in comparison to the rest of the world, Australia's an awesome place, awesome culture, awesome way of life. And as much as we can try to do a lot more to get better, but I definitely want to go in the opposite way. For sure. So, yeah. I'm sorry, there was a bit of a skirt around that.
I think that was intentional in some way. But if we're talking about industry specifically, obviously defence industry is split up between anywhere between startups to SMEs to primes. And Bit and Zone obviously specifically invests in startups. What's the different value that a giant multinational company in defence industry, what's the difference between value that they provide to the Defence Force compared to a startup? And why have you chosen to invest into startups specifically?
Sure. I guess two buzzwords is primes or large companies is scale, production rates, that sort of thing, and the power of their supply chain. And for startups, buzzword agile. It's super agile. They can move much faster. They don't have to go through so many hurdles of the chain of command, I guess you could say, to get decision made to then change the thing. And I think it's a sort of analogy is the big ship and a small ship. Big ship takes a lot more power, a lot more things to steer, and it's a lot slower as opposed to a small vessel that can change direction fast and spear off. And I think for that, those primes, those large organisations, there's a lot more money behind them. They generally get all the larger contracts because they're able to deliver based on their size and the capacity and the capability. The smaller ones generally, it takes a lot more for them to scale, a lot more it's capital intensive. There's a lot of time needed. But what I think Australian industry is really good at, particularly the startups and the small, medium enterprise, is coming together, I think, is a massive strength. And we've seen it a few times in Australia with consortium approaches within defence industry, where they've delivered and they've out-delivered the primes as 3 or 4, maybe in one case it's 25 companies that come together for a problem set and delivered capability in a very short time frame. To come back to the small companies, I guess, and startups is on that decision matrix is they can just make a decision like that. There's like maybe one person or they're a small team, and they're able to make a decision quite rapidly and change the direction or pivot, to speak the lingo.
So, in terms of the technology development and also delivery to the ADF, you need the larger scale, primes, let's say, to actually deliver the big widgets, and then you also need the smaller startups which, as you said, is much more flexible, and they can move around faster, and therefore they can develop technology faster. Do you think that we have the right balance in the industry at the moment? The number of primes compared to the startups and the scale of the companies. That's the first question, and the second question is, do you think ADF is prepared for the disruption that caused by startups? Because in the industry, in commercial, industry, startups have been able to achieve high level of disruption to almost most industries. But I think ADF still has a long way to actually get there. And is ADF thinking about preparation there?
Yeah, interesting questions. I think, to your first point, both are super essential to the environment, to the ecosystem. We definitely need both. And larger ones definitely has a strength in their ability to integrate many technologies or many companies, services, products, that sort of thing. Definitely essential. They do, you can't do it without primes or large companies for sure. And I think on the small side, I think Australia, there's always been this mentality, buy USA, buy from allies. They essentially, there's a bunch of different thinking behind that and different reasonings, and part of it's de-risking, part of it's interoperability as well to a degree, interchangeability, things like those. That I think in Australia, the risk tolerances in defence, something that's definitely needs a lot of work, and a lot of people have acknowledged that, and a lot of people, it's quite common knowledge. The risk appetite is much lower than of our peers or greater peers. But I think it's disproportionate currently. We definitely need more smalls and mediums. We've seen some great mediums in Australia in the defence industry. Not as many as other industries, that's for sure. We're definitely laggards in that regard, but that's just because of support from defence, essentially, the investment from defence. It's a common story where Australian companies, brilliant tech, and someone mentioned Drone Shield yesterday, and they're a great example for this. In fact, they're such a poor example, such a good example at the same time, in the fact that Australian defence didn't invest in them, didn't see the value, I guess you could say, from a defence standpoint. They went overseas. They got a lot of good traction with some allies, and then they came back to Australia, and they're quite open about it, that the Australian defence pay a premium, and rightly so in that sort of space, because they had to go above and beyond and spend all this money and time and all this stuff. Yeah, and the fact that they kept in the game is commendable, because if your own country won't help you, it's like, well, what's the point? Why should I help them? Sort of thing. Well, sometimes that stuff happens, but these guys stuck through with it, and now we have great capabilities, which are used around the world currently in theatres of war, and that's a common story. They're quite a well-known example of that. And those guys do some awesome stuff for defence capability for their alliance. But yeah, people have to go offshore and then come back, which is.
Do you think these SMEs need to be diversified in the targets? Have to be like 50-50 between the commercial and defence, or what is your take? And
should we just stay sustainable as a company?
Correct.
It's so hard to get business from defence. You can't just...
Correct. And so what is your take? And at the same time, for an SME, it is difficult to be diversified in having different branches, because don't get me wrong, it's not just ADF that is risk averse. It's Australian culture in general. Like, you go to mining, you go to construction, you go to even healthcare.
Go to the bank.
Go to the bank, they're like, we're not going to touch it. What does it say? We're not going to touch it until it breaks. Something like that. That mindset. But what do you think of that? Like, how ADF can change and be pioneer of that? Is it possible, in your opinion?
I think it's possible. So I'm biased. I want everyone to help defence.
Yeah.
We need as much help as we can get, I think. But so I'm very biased. And Bean Zone, like I said, we're materially military application. So we want the founders to focus on defence, majority of it. So unfortunately, the dual use conversation is very applicable, and really they do, particularly in Australia, you do have, even in the United States, this happens a lot, the dual use space. You have to diversify your markets. You have to go for the commercial market. And a lot of that does feed R&D. It's faster generally to get for your R&D, but also, it gives you that capital injection, all that. It keeps the lights on essentially to work on the defence stuff, which some of these companies, they want to target defence only. Their technology is very defence driven, as in that's why they built it and that's what they're passionate about. A lot of them are veterans, and they've seen the problems with inside and they've left, and then they've started their own company, which is something else. That's another topic that we don't really support our innovators as much as we should within defence, but also people that leave to start companies to contribute. There is definitely a clear lack of support there. I think that we should definitely be working on as a country. But I agree, in general, I think it's a cultural issue more so than anything else. And I think one of the biggest problems with dual use is for those small companies in particular and startups, they just don't have the staff to attack two different markets or multiple markets simultaneously with great success, or any success really, because they've spread so thin. But then again, they can't just target defence, because the long lead times, the amount of time until you get a contract, you go bankrupt before you even get there. Hence why a lot of people go offshore, which is good and bad. There's a dangerous area there. People go offshore to some countries. There is restrictions on export, and defence have made it a lot harder, which is good for people to export things where they shouldn't, which is awesome, because we need that. There has been times in the past people have exported things to places they shouldn't have, and then those places have technologies that we should have and that they probably shouldn't have.
While we're on the topic of startups and SMEs in defence, hypothetically, if there was someone in the audience watching who wanted to start a startup in the defence industry, what kind of tips would you give them from 2 points of view? One, from getting funding, and then two, from getting the defence to buy from you. So what can they do to set up and strategize in their company to give them the most success in those 2 points?
Yeah, great question. there's a lot there. So couple of things. There's definitely some grants out there, and Defence have just released a new grant scheme, which is a lot more conducive of, it's just much better. Instead of a few different grants out there, you go to one place now, which makes it a lot easier. People aren't repeating their applications and having to find out where all these are, what different people to talk to. Now it's a bit more streamlined, which is good. So hopefully it'll be better. I'd say if you do want to start a company, a startup in the defence industry, or focus on that as a primary customer, if you haven't served yourself, I'd recommend getting a veteran on your team or multiple. Plug there, definitely hire veterans. But for one of the best reasons, I'd say, there's lots of other reasons around their leadership, their work ethic, teamwork, all of these things that culturally within defence that we, if you don't have them already, they're drilled into you and sort of just mould you over time. But language is a big thing. Being able to speak the language of the customer and nuances, and there's over 10,000 acronyms in defence. There's a bunch of stuff for acronyms, and there's one acronym. There could be 40 things out of the same acronym, and it depends on the and how you say in a sentence what it means. And even sometimes some of those things, the same acronym can mean two different things in the same context. So it's quite confusing to a lot of people that haven't lived that, haven't spent time in there. So hire veterans, hire reservists, because they're still in. They can still provide, I guess, the culture perspective, or what defence is like. What's big things defence are like going through right now, culturally and the mindset sort of way. So yeah, definitely language is a big thing. Branding, your marketing. Often I'll see pictures from founders that they start off in the commercial sector or recreational sector, and their brandings, say like I'll give an example here without going into the company, but great company, great technology, very novel, patented. It can be used across many systems, but you'll see like a white boat with a couple sitting in it, recreational. Okay, cool, it's a little holiday boat. Pitching that to defence, people are automatically going to turn off. The unconscious bias, like that's a boat for going on the weekend. Simply changing the colour of the boat to black or camo, getting the people out of it, screenplay, just doing a bit of editing. Automatically, you see it like, okay, that looks military, and people just straight away don't switch off. And it's definitely a real thing. Like, so minor things like that. Just, I guess, educating industry or startups in the space that language is everything. So yeah, harping on about it, but veterans and reservists, definitely get those in your team, those people in your team. Get into networking events. There's lots of networking events in the defense space.
And on the networking events as well, I just want you to touch, like, who are they open to? Because obviously defense is also very, it's a very stigmatized area in the public view. So if I was not in defense, because I am, and I saw a defense networking event, I would like stay clear, like I don't want to get targeted. So like what's that experience as well? Like is it welcome?
For sure, definitely welcome. Both defence and defence industry have events in the space often. So I'll touch on defence, I guess. They're doing a lot more outwards facing engagement. They've just had about 3 events in Canberra in the last month, all around for defence industry and helping upskill and educate around defence industry security. The DIDS, the Defence Industry Development Strategy, that came out this year, which is trying to help the industry, bring industry and defence together, to your point earlier, which is awesome. There's a lot of initiatives and programs they're trying to do to incentivise this and encourage this, which is great. But yeah, definitely. And I guess on the industry side, plugging defence industry networking, which I'm part of the team there, and they're doing awesome things. Sandy started numerous years back, and essentially it's informal networking once a month in all capital cities in Australia and in various other places around Australia, like even in Dubbo. So my foster cousin, really weird how this works, right? As well, my foster cousin, she runs the defence industry networking in Dubbo, and her son's also on the RAF. And I remember when I was probably 15, 16, going to my foster family's family events. They're my foster granddad's, say, birthday, 90th birthday, I think it was. Ethan, my foster second cousin, was there, and he, we'd talk about defence. Like, he wanted to join the Air Force, and I wanted to join the Army. He was a couple of years younger, and now, he's an officer in the RAF, which is awesome. He's killing it. Defence industry networking, super informal. You go there, have a couple of beers with your mates, and you meet people, network. And then, that there's so many, I guess, things that have come out of that, like not tangible at the start anyway. So many good business, I'll say, joint ventures and opportunities that have come as a result of defence industry networking. And there's also other ones.
Which is inevitable, right? When you get passionate people together and they talk ideas, and that's how things form. So yeah,
100%. And the other one is defence in business, which is another team. So we just ran a defence veteran charity showcase a couple of nights ago in Brisbane. We had 8 charities, sort of micro charities, ones that are lesser known. I get up and present for 5 minutes each. One, to help veterans become aware of these charities. So, for example, one, you can go on a yacht for a day up in the Gold Coast.
Wow.
And a veteran also, remember, you can just go there, and the Texas will awesome work with that. SV Mystics is called. And there's obviously your dogs, PTSD dogs. There's equine therapy, so you can go horse riding for a day, learn how to look after a horse, and that sort of things. There's all these like micro charities, ones that are lesser known. I'm a dry throat. So getting them up there. So that was a collaboration between Defence Industry Networking and Defence in Business. So that was awesome to see 2 volunteer associations in the defence industry space come together. And Defence in Business, I'll say, is more, I guess, targeted events, curated for professional development, primarily for targeting veterans, but also serving members who are transitioning, or just serving members in general, and also industry as well. So Steve Baxter, the founder and CEO of Bean Zone, but most people will know him from Shark Tank. He spoke at a fireside chat last year, and it drew a really big crowd, like Steve always draws a really big crowd, which is awesome. Everyone loves to hear him speak. It's very disruptive, which I love.
That's awesome. Yeah. Pivoting a little bit to back to Bean Zone and venture capital in general. You did mention a little bit previously about risk appetite in Australia within the Defence Force. How have you found operating a venture capital firm in Australia and even specifically in defence, and then comparing that experience to, I'm sure you have networks of other venture capitalists around the world in different industries and in defence as well, maybe in the US. Like, what is the nuances of operating in Australia and pros and cons?
Yeah, this is, I probably can't speak too much of this because I honestly, I'm in the team, I definitely have the least experience in this space. It's been a solid fire hose the last 12 months, to be honest. The team's been awesome, helping me with the acronyms on that side of the space. It's sort of funny, the same acronym, it means something in defence, it means something in the VC world. It's been a fire hose information. But I guess nuances, so defence obviously is such a small sector within the private capital space. There's only a handful of defence venture capital or national security venture capital funds in Australia. We all collaborate as much as we can, and definitely a bunch of us trying to do that more. In fact, a bunch of us are in a single chat, and we've held some events through another DIN. DIN's one of the most common acronyms I'd say in this space. This is Defence Investors Network.
Oh, okay.
So there's an Australian Defence Investors Network run by Jamie Watson from BMT, doing awesome stuff. There's also an AUKUS DIN, and there's also a US, UK, and there's also a Europe one as well. And essentially that's just to bring together investors in that space to collaborate and share leads, deal flow where they can, to essentially help founders. So more of us are coming into a deal to de-risk it for all the investors, but also for the founders as well, and give them more of a network access, I guess you could say. But yeah, it's very nuanced. And I think Steve coming in with the lethality, the non-ESG constrained mandate, where we won't fund like things we're signatories to as a country. We won't fund gases or cluster munitions, all these things that are inhumane and just evil. But we'll fund things that warfighters need. So that saying that publicly, you get a lot of condemnation, and Steve's known for saying really edgy things and getting a lot of backlash from sort of some certain communities out there. But yeah, definitely that alone, that lethality aspect is hard to swallow for a lot of people, and a lot of investors in Australia. Steve has a massive network of investors both here and internationally, and same as the rest of the team. They have a really good network of other investors in other sectors. To be honest, I don't, but definitely not my focus area. Definitely meet them at different events, a couple here and there. So I can't speak to that too much overseas and that sort of thing. But I will say defense investment overseas. The US are killing it. They're leading the way. And there's a lot more capital there as well. So that's a big problem here in Australia. There's not as much capital in defense space. But also the capital raising environment right now for founders and investors to raise funds is from other people saying to me, it's the worst it's been in 30 years. So and even more so for defense, because ESG, it's just so hard. A lot of investors just won't touch it.
Is it because of the even evaluation, or is it because uncertainty? Why? I mean, I personally believe that raising fund in Australia is, first of all, is such a headache. The other thing is you're not getting the right evaluation because the market is very uncertain. That's my take. But I've never talked to someone from inside the capital side that, what is your vision or what is your perspective on that?
I guess my perspective is, there's a lot of risks. And I think the biggest issue with people not investing in the space or the reasons of lack of is because of cultural perceptions.
Okay.
But I think there are some other things that are probably more tangible, like long lead times in defense is well known. The uncertainty, 100%. The market size or the evaluations is a really interesting one. It's hard to evaluate defense hardware in Australia and even in general because, it's a lot easier to evaluate software than it is hardware. And Steve says hardware's hard. Like it's aptly named. Hardware's hard, and military hardware is even harder. So I think the valuation is the big thing that we're seeing. It's interesting in the defense startup space. But I don't know. I think most of it's cultural. I think that's the biggest thing. I think there's less appetite. People just what can I invest in this green tech thing where everyone loves it, everyone's supporting it, and rightly so. Like it's important. Or do I invest in this defense thing where I might get looked at like I'm a war criminal or a warmonger or an arms dealer or get all these
much negative media,
a lot of stigma. It's sort of an easy choice when you think of those two sort of things from that sort of standpoint, risk standpoint and an optics standpoint. I think that's probably. I hope that answers your question.
So coming off the last thing that you were talking about, which was about people in the public when they hear defense, they think of a bunch of warmongers or people who just want to fight out there. So, and their story is like, because we're investing in defense, then we definitely want to go to war. And then you also see the media specifically has a very negative stories about defense all the time. Not all the time, but most of the time. What is your take? What is your perspective on that? Are we telling the whole story to the Australian public or the Western societies in general?
Interesting question. It's such a complicated thing. I think we definitely can, from a defense perspective, and I think from a media perspective, that it could definitely be a lot of more good news stories pushed out there. There's a lot of good news stories that defense don't share, and they're not classified or anything. They're marketing. I know defence media and the sort of public relations teams are doing a lot more as part of that recruitment drive. There are a lot more mediums where they're pushing out content, which is great to see. Definitely more of it. But one of those charities from Thursday night is VISP, so Veterans in Schools program. And I mentioned this yesterday briefly. They get veterans to come in and speak at schools, essentially twofold: give the veterans a voice, tell their story, share their story, but to influence and shape or motivate young Australians to look at a career of service, whether that's defence or police or fireys or the AMBOs. It's to encourage them to look at hopefully pursuing a career of service. And I think we need more outreach like that, particularly for young Australians. We need to change the narrative that defence isn't bad. They're not going out there just trying to kill everything and raid villages it's a lot of us are trying to push defence sits in ESG under social, because at the end of the day, defence is defence. There's a key word there: defence, not attack, not assault, not offensive. It's defence. And if we need to defend our country, our sovereign nation, from threats, because a lot of threats out there, not just these ones that are a bit more topical. There's a lot of threats out there. And if we don't defend both physically, through cyber, through the 5 domains, social won't exist. We won't have our way of life. We won't have, the society won't exist as it is now, and it won't get better. It will only get worse. I know there's a lot of people out there that hate defence or see defence as negative. The things they're going after are valid as well. There's definitely other things that are super valid. We need to make this country better in a lot of different ways. But we also need to make it stronger. And threats out there are getting stronger. And they're getting more malicious, more disruptive, more destructive. So, the culture definitely needs to change, needs to adapt. And then we need disruption to do that, I think. We're just sitting and people just doing the same thing again and again and just pushing the same narrative, I don't think will work. I think we need to be more disruptive.
Not to get philosophical, but like I think it's got to do with like two things where one when you have a generation that's growing up that's never seen wars, have never experienced that, and their whole life, even like the second or third generation, that at that point their parents, their grandparents have never seen it, and they just assume that peace is the status quo and it's normal and we don't have to do anything to get this. And then secondly, they all have the mindset that it must be exactly the same everywhere else in the world. And so we kind of get a bit out of touch. And I get why the public defense mindset, it's not that it's not, I don't think it's that it's bad. It's more leaning towards it's not needed. Like, why do we need defense if we're not at war?
Yeah.
Like, I
do understand that, and I have reflected on a very similar type of stream of thinking. Is, and I won't say ignorance is that's a wrong word. That definitely puts people offside. It is good that a country's so protected and we're so fortunate that we don't have, the general public doesn't have to stress about stuff, which is awesome to have like that. It's always good to be educated, understand what's happening in the world. And I know humans are humans. It's much easier to sort of block that out, because why would you want to stress about that and be upset about that and be angry about that?
Of course.
So I definitely, from a human side, I definitely understand it. I think it's great. It's amazing, actually, that we live in a country where we don't have to necessarily worry about that. But yeah, the geopolitical side of the things that you're talking about, it's threats are coming whether we like it or not, and we need to have at least understand and support government and defence and a wider national security ecosystem to be able to deter them and defend if we need. But I 100% acknowledge it, and I appreciate it. I really do. I think it's a good thing, but I think we need to start.
But don't you think that the meaning of I think we have justified and clarified that we are not a bunch of warmongers. We want to have a peaceful life.
Yeah.
But just on that line, do you think that Australian, or to your point, it's true because they have never seen war, but also I have another saying that is, which is the meaning of war is changed. But you don't need to conquer a country like you don't necessarily need to send troops to that country to invade that country. So there are so many other ways to invade that country this day and age. For instance, you can just disrupt the country, how they will operate, and then when they become dysfunctional, then you can manipulate and change, and they stop the things that like they do. A bit of a subversion theories and how they can operate, and it sort of like makes me sort of like just click, because the reason I'm saying there was an ad a few months ago which I saw. It's just one of these media, state media actually were showing it, just a bunch of generals sitting around the table, and it was like a comic type of thing. That
Is that the Australian one?
Yes.
Yeah, I've seen that. I know exactly
which is like, who is your biggest trading partner, which is China, and then why do you invest in defense? Because you want to protect it, but then your biggest partner is China, and then why do you need like that? And the question came from like, it's not the whole story. It's not telling the whole story of why. It is related, but it's not necessarily dependent on each other. It doesn't mean that because you're the biggest trading partner doesn't mean that it's safe, or it cannot be broken. But it's just the fact that your biggest trading partner, you have conflict with it. It's just the biggest sign as well. So what do you think? I mean, how do you think that the war scenarios are changing? And are we telling the whole story to the Australian public, or the dangers that is happening to the Australian public?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, unpack. I hope we never have a conflict with any other country, I'll say, where Australia is at. Yeah. But to your earlier point, the cyber domain and the space domain, things are already, and have been for many years, already happening, and it's just getting more prevalent and more common, and not just from one or two state actors. There's a few out there doing it. There's also non-state actors out there constantly attacking Australia and the alliance, subversion, sabotage, misinformation, disinformation, all tactics, all things that definitely happening out there, and have been for a long time. It's just getting, I guess, it's getting a bit more media, which is good and bad, I think. But
it's always a give and take, right? Like you don't want war to be in the news, but then you also do want war to be in the news.
It can't win, I think. In that thing, there's pros and cons of both, and it has to be a tipping point where we don't talk about it all the time. Like it's not in the media. It's great, life's dandy, and then it tips, and we have to switch on and be like, okay, we probably need to, but I think what the great power competition is the biggest driving factor for what's happening. There's other side things, but great power competition is a driving factor for all the stuff we're seeing around Southeast Asia, Indo-Pacific, and these sort of theatres coming very different to previous theatres that Australia's operated in, or a lot their alliances operated in at scale. It's a hard one. It's a hard question to unpack.
No, fair enough. I think we are almost out of time, unfortunately. You got a flight to catch as well. I did want to touch on, I know it's briefly on geopolitics, but just going back to your experience with the defense, something that, and maybe to close us off as well, something that is very evident if you watch any kind of media is how much respect and reverence people that serve in the defense is given in America, and how it may not be as reciprocated here. And maybe it has a little bit to do with our discussion just before. But America also hasn't seen war. It's the same as Australia, right? As in for a long time. And the people there and, great parents, what do they do differently there that there's a different culture in the public about defense in America compared to maybe what we do here?
Two things. I think America has seen a lot of war. In the news, obviously, that some of the GWAT, the Global War on Terror, which is still ongoing, but the GWAT, as GWAT was known, is finished. The withdrawal of Afghanistan and that sort of thing. But it's still an ongoing. Terrorism is still a massive threat. Just as a side note, I think the shift in a lot of conversations in all this space is moving towards great power competition and what that is. But terrorism is obviously ever present sort of threat to the West. But I think American citizens have seen war for the last 20 years or so. And they had the Cold War, obviously, as well, which even though that was conflict in other domains as well, not so much the physical domain, although, yeah. But I think cultural difference between Australia and US, the US is very patriotic, obviously. The fat guy was there recently, and they asked active US personnel to board first, and all these things, and it's very present. Going to shops, and they've got all the different services badges essentially on the wall, and it's very clear that they're very thankful and they're very respective of their service people and veterans. In Australia, I think Anzac Day, it's Christmas for defence. It's the best day of the year, really. A lot of fun, kept with a lot of old mates, and get away from really anything. if you're a veteran of defence, your own suit, medals. But it's just it's a purge. But and Remembrance Day obviously is another solemn event that we have. And the rest of the year, I think the general public just switch off, and who cares about veterans and service people. And I'll be honest with you, I'm torn on this subject where I think we don't need to go down the path and go over the top. And I think it's some things you see overseas, it's over the top, and it's just. And I don't think many veterans or many service people want that. I think it's a bit cringy, to use that word, to be honest with you. But there is a balance, I think, and it's not that service people or veterans want to be bowed down to and you're a hero, here's all this stuff. But I think mutual respect is probably the word I'll use. It's just understanding that they have given a lot of, they sacrificed a lot, and not that other people haven't sacrificed things in other things. The medical field is a great example. Paramedics and nurses, they sacrifice a lot. But in this stage, I guess in this space, people are sacrificing a lot with families, their lives potentially, and it's the only profession where you, other than the police, the only profession where you sign up, you are signing up with the knowledge, the understanding that at any point you could go somewhere and there's a high chance of death on purpose. It's inherently a high chance of death. So understanding that and acknowledging that, I think goes a long way. But the cultures in US and Australia are never going to be the same.
We haven't asked the main question, which was because we did discuss about the geopolitics last week. The question was that do you think we are already in World War III, or we are in the pre-war area, or the whole war thing is just a buzz that the media is it's just out there? What is your take? What do you think where we are now?
We're in competition in a scale. We're definitely not in conflict from a strategic standpoint or from a national standpoint. We're in competition, and it's acknowledged that we're in competition. I definitely think there's shaping actions occurring from various entities. definitely shaping and influencing actions. There is a lot of testing the waters, I'll say, from some state-based actors, which is not good when certain countries are using sonar to injure our personnel, and a few other instances in the last few months. I think that's terrible. They're my mates. They're our people. They're Australian citizens of Australia. They're mates, and they're getting So we're in
It's a tough
competition.
question.
Yeah, it is. We're in competition, definitely, undoubtedly. But
Speaking of that, it's a bit tough because like you always hear the worst is when a force tries to like move the line just slowly. And so what's acceptable just slowly shifts, and so it's hard to tell when they actually cross the line because they've just strategically moved it incrementally over a long period of time.
Yes.
It's like, where do you draw it? Like, where's
And
what's
you're always
too far?
in doubt. How do you
Yeah.
respond to that?
Exactly.
Because then
Is that too much?
Is it too much or is
Yeah.
it not? And part of my argument about nuclear as well is like if you have, I mean, this is a discussion that I've been talking about. Like, yes, the solar is good and we need that in the mix. But imagine that your entire energy grid is distributed across the country. They can just attack it through cyber. And then when it's down, you don't have energy. But you don't know how to respond to it because you just don't have energy. But if you have nuclear plants around the country, they can't do anything with it because it is too obvious. And like the response to that is going to be obvious. So,
in disruption-wise, you mean disrupting those grids and that sort of thing?
yeah, correct. Yeah. Correct. And I think to your point, when you're talking about it, it's just the way the game is moving forward is like to make the other person can't make a decisive decision about how to react or how to plan things, you know. And that comes back to the original question, which I believe that we are in, if not in the World War already, we are in that area of uncertainty, which we.
Someone's just got to make a big enough move. Yeah.
We're definitely in uncertain times, that's for sure. Most uncertain times since the Cold War, many people have said. If you doesn't turn the news on and you do a bit of research, it's pretty clear and evident. To both your points, there definitely there's people, there's countries out there that are definitely moving that bar. They're raising the bar ever so slightly, so that if someone reacts, it's disproportionate to that. And then when they get to a threshold, then when a larger action occurs, the jump from here to there it's now here to there. Yeah. So it's not as crazy. And it's also good at test. It's a good strategy in a strategic sense to test people's responses, but also the technologies and provide and I guess develop countermeasures to those technologies potentially as well. So it's interesting times.
Well, Jake, it's been a pleasure having you on. You obviously have got a wealth of knowledge in this space, and I've definitely learned a lot, and I hope the audience has as well. So,
thanks very much for having me on.
Huge thanks.
Really enjoyed it.
I mean, there's a lot more to discuss, but I think for
we
now,
did one episode.
Yeah,
We can get
we could talk for days about a few of these subjects, but